Hello, everybody. I'm Meredith Porte, and welcome to Conversations with Friends. I have to first start by telling you that I was reading an article a couple of weeks ago, something like that, about well-being and about a term that I really didn't know much about called mattering, the importance of mattering in our lives. And as I'm reading, I'm thinking, God, I really would love to do an interview with this person. And then all of a sudden, this person, the man that I'm here with today, I learned that he's a professor and more than that, even at the University of Miami. And I thought, well, that won't be hard. Even though it's on Zoom, it won't be hard, I think, maybe to get to interview him. Not that it would matter, really, but anyway, he immediately said yes. He responded quickly. And I'm really excited to share with you, his story and what he's been doing. So it's really, he is the author, Dr. Prilleltensky is the author of 12 books and over 140 articles and chapters. His work over the last, I don't know how many years, but years, is all about mattering, which is, we're going to get into, and you're going to understand more by the end of this interview what this is all about. And he, as I said, he lives in Miami. He is also, he holds the inaugural Mautner, I hope I said that right, chair in community well-being at the University of Miami. He's the author and the former, he's the former dean of education and human development at the University of Miami. His interests are, I think you're already getting it, are in the promotion of well-being and individuals, organizations, and community, and in the integration of wellness and communities. So Dr. Prilleltensky, welcome. And I'm really delighted to interview you. And I think, when I read about this, and I know you're, known internationally for your work. First of all, maybe we should just start with saying, what is mattering? What does that mean, mattering, the importance of mattering in our lives?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure. Mattering is defined as experiences of feeling valued and adding value. So these two complementary experiences are what mattering is all about. Mm-hmm. All of us have a fundamental human need to feel valued, to feel recognized, to be seen, to be appreciated, to be respected, to be treated with dignity. We call this feeling valued. This is half of the equation of mattering. The other half of the equation is our need to be agents of change in the world, to make a difference in the world. Starting with ourselves, we want to improve ourselves, we want to grow, we want to develop ourselves, but we also want to add value to other people, to our families, our colleagues, the community, and the world. These two experiences are complementary because the more I feel valued, the more confident I feel to add value to the world. So when I make a contribution, when I help a friend, when I volunteer in the community, when I seek political office to make a big change in my city or country, I'm trying to add value to myself and others. And if people say, hey, thank you for what you're doing, that makes me feel valued, and that reinforces me to keep going. We call this a virtuous cycle.
A virtual cycle. A virtual
Yes.
cycle. This need to be mattered. It makes total sense. But I've been in situations, I'm sure others have been in, you're at work and your boss doesn't value you, or, for me as a, TV producer, I remember my supervisor, the executive producer, looked at a program I had worked on for months and just said, no, and I was like, what's wrong? I thought it was great. Others saw it and thought it was great. No, I don't like it. And I was like, oh, I felt as if my heart was just hurting, I wasn't valued. And but I will tell you that it really helped me because I went back out into the fields, into the Everglades, and worked on it and did better and came back with it. And she said, yes. So then I felt, yes, it's good enough. It's good enough for air. But so does that mean that I have to depend upon people to almost like me and value me in order for me to feel good about my life?
That's a very good point. As we grow as babies, as infants, we absolutely depend on other people for our well-being. Because what is the message that babies and infants get when their emotional, physical, social needs are not met? You feel like you don't matter, right? So from an evolutionary point of view, we depend on others, right? We humans grow, we are born completely helpless. Over time, we're able to internalize positive messages about ourselves, and we ourselves have an opportunity to feel valued by ourselves. So eventually, we grow confident in our abilities to face setbacks. So you faced a setback at work, but that didn't kill you, right? Because you probably have had a history of other people valuing your work and you valuing yourself. So you were resilient and strong enough to overcome that adversity. Not everyone is as lucky as you were in that situation, that you had the strength to overcome the negative feedback you received. So from a developmental point of view, we are very dependent on other people, and we continue to be dependent on other people. What happens is that hopefully we have had enough positive experiences growing up that we develop self-confidence and resilience and the ability to withstand adversity. So that's how it works. It doesn't mean that we stop depending on others. We forever depend on others, but we tend to rely more on our internal sense of strength.
Now, if we're lucky enough to have had family that did support us, that did value us, right? And the more that I've, the older I've gotten, the more that I've seen how many people didn't have that. Many people did not grow up with families that were loving, or maybe there was, a father that left, never saw the kid, never saw this person again, or for years. Maybe there was fighting going on in the house. I mean, all kinds of things. And I was just wondering, does one have to undo any past suffering, or past hurts in order to get to the point that you're talking about, feeling mattered?
Yes, I think it's important for people to acknowledge where the hurt comes from. And many people tend to internalize external problems. All the reasons you mentioned, a father who left and never came back, maybe neglectful family members, these are external problems, right? It's not our doing. You're a baby. You still haven't had a chance to do anything wrong in the world, right? But sometimes you are the subject of this injustice. Because when we don't get what we deserve from our families and our communities, it's an injustice. And we are not getting what we deserve. That's a grave psychological injustice. So it's important to understand where the hurt is coming from. That's step number one. And step number two is to add value to other people as we grow up. So hopefully we engage in reciprocal relationships, as opposed to staying just in the hurt and the pain and the regret and the anger. Yes, it's important to acknowledge where this is coming from. It's important to point the finger at the right source of the problem. It's not me. I was just a kid. It wasn't my fault that my father was alcoholic. and that perhaps my mother was abusive. It's not my fault. I was a baby. It's important to understand the source. But it's also important not to stay there in a position, in a passive situation, but rather to begin thinking, what can I do to create healthier relationships with my family, with the workplace, with my neighbors, so that they in turn can become sources of support and I in turn can support them. So we cannot stay forever in feeling valued or devalued. We have to move into the adding value side of the equation so that we can grow healthier relationships. I cannot be forever in the position, my mother was a bad mother. You know, it's okay. We have to understand where this is coming from. You cannot stay forever in the fact that my father was an alcoholic and therefore my life is doomed. No, you acknowledge and then you move forward.
I find this so interesting because I know with especially just, with the meditation practice of the Brahma Kumaris, service is so important. And that's what you're talking about, helping others, doing things that you can. And I know myself, that when I've been involved in projects that we've done over years, we had Million Minutes to Peace project with the United Nations years ago. And that was like my first, I really hadn't been involved with anything to do with service, like helping the world, helping communities, and how good I felt. And I didn't do much. Actually, one thing I did, and he has been on the program, was Michael Stock, who has the folk music program on WLRN. I asked him if he could come up with something to do with peace, maybe mention peace. And he said, I will do an entire program on peace songs. And he did that. And this was many years ago. This was many years ago. And I just couldn't believe that all I did was ask him. And he said yes, and he came up with something. So for me, creative. And, he has a 3-hour show. So 3 hours of peace songs, was pretty cool. And so it wasn't even just about me doing maybe some service. I saw how happy he was to do the service.
This is such a great illustration of something that we know from science. And what do we know from the science of volunteering, for example? That volunteering and helping other people improves your own personal well-being before other people's personal well-being is improved. And how come volunteering improves your well-being? Because it makes you feel like you matter. It makes you feel valued. You are adding value to the world, and the world is telling you, thank you for doing this for us. Right? So mattering is what we call a mediating mechanism between the act of volunteering and your sense of happiness and well-being. Mattering is the secret sauce of volunteering, of helping others in the community, because it's adding value and getting value in return.
Beautiful. That's just so beautiful. I mean, it's so powerful and empowering to hear that, because sometimes people feel, what can I do? I'd like to help people, but I really don't know what to do. People say that. I've heard people that have been very successful say that, they can't think of anything that they can do. So they go on to just work on being more successful, and they're more involved. Often people are so involved in their own lives and their own problems that they don't have time, right?
Right. So, what you are referring, Meredith, is to the balance between adding value to yourself and adding value to others. So what you said about, they go on to be more successful. So maybe they make more money, or they get a huge promotion, or a great deal, or a great break at work, whatever that is. That's adding value to yourself. But eventually, that's going to lead to a sense of emptiness, because we all need to be connected to other human beings and to a larger cause, right? So we need to be pursuing something higher than ourselves. And to all those people who say, I don't know how to help, I have a very simple answer. You have to merge your passion with an opportunity. So perhaps you are interested in helping people with disabilities. There are many organizations doing great work for people with disabilities. Maybe you want to help veterans. There are many organizations helping people, recover from trauma, from war, reintegrating in society. Maybe you're passionate about kids and you want to volunteer and read to children. Or maybe you grew up as a single parent and you identify with single parents. There are great organizations doing that kind of work. Or maybe you want to become politically active. There are a million ways to be active. And my answer to those people who say, I don't know how, I'm going to say this. Perfect is the enemy of the good. Don't wait until something completely extraordinary that will revolutionize the world for the better comes along. Just start doing something small. That will already help you.
I really can tell that you have, you haven't, this has been years, I'm assuming, of experience and research, right? That you have seen this. It isn't just you've seen some people go out and help and then they're happier or they have this feeling of mattering, that this, for you, this has really been, can I say, has it been a lifelong passion, or did you come to this at some point in your career?
Well, to make a very long story short, I started growing an interest in well-being, frankly, when I lost my parents in a car accident when I was 8 years old. And I went through an emotional roller coaster. I was depressed. I was sad. Nobody knew how to help me, really, other than other 8-year-olds who knew how to be there for me. The adults in my family, they had good intentions. They had no idea how to help a boy who was grieving. So I started developing an interest in well-being from very young age. And I thought, when I grow up, maybe I can help other kids who go through something similar. And then I grew up in Argentina under a fascist dictatorship, and I saw the suffering that can be inflicted when democracy is tarnished and when military dictators take over the country and they just infuse fear and terror in the population. So because of personal, national, political circumstances, I just grew this interest in well-being. And the more I thought about it, I thought, well, well-being is really what I call wellness is related to fairness. When people experience fairness in their lives, when there is no discrimination, when there is access to resources, when everybody can have healthcare and a roof over their head, and when people can meet their basic needs just because there is a decent government that looks after people, your well-being goes up. And your well-being goes up. Why? Because you feel like you matter. As a worker, as a citizen, as a human being, as a friend, as a sibling. So the more there is wellness, that's usually because there is fairness. And the more there is fairness, the more there is worthiness. You feel like you're a worthy human being who is entitled to fair treatment by everybody around you.
So powerful this is. Your words are just so powerful and empowering. And I'm wondering, when you've taught classes, I don't know if you teach now or,
yes, I do.
You do a lot. How do students respond? Are people say that the young people, well, I hear two things. Sometimes I hear that young people don't care about these things. They're just caught up in, technology and all of this and, somehow figuring out how to make money. But then I also hear that they're much, and I see they're much more aware maybe than my generation. They want to help the environment. They want to go on Saturdays and get rid of, garbage on the beach. And, they seem to be a lot more oriented toward that. And also many more vegetarians. And I read that you are a vegetarian. So do you think that the young people, how do you feel? You're the expert when it comes to, hearing what they have to say and seeing what they do.
So I have to say that young people are struggling, first of all. Young people are struggling because they are going to inherit a world that is a mess in many, many ways. They are inheriting a world that, from the point of view of climate change, is really becoming inhospitable to human beings. So they worry about climate change. They worry about social mobility. Social mobility in the US has decreased immensely over the last 3 decades. So has decreased to the point that we're towards the bottom of OECD countries. So young people are thinking, am I going to get a decent job? How am I going to pay student loans? On top of all these worries, there is this pressure that is based on social comparisons. Because they are engaging in social media so much, there is research documenting that the more time you spend on social media, the more depressed you become. And the more depressed you become, the more despondent you become. And the more concerned with your own well-being you become. And there isn't a lot of energy left sometimes for external causes. And how does this work? People are forever comparing themselves to others in social media who are more successful, more popular, more beautiful, more sexy, more attractive, wealthier, famous. And the result of your comparing yourself to these other people is like, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not wealthy enough, I'm not popular enough, I'm doomed. So the first thing I want to say in response is young people are struggling a great deal. A lot of them, they are struggling with their own internal issues, but that doesn't stop many of them from wanting to change the world to become a better place. And that's the struggle, right? The struggle is, do I stay in my own cocoon, or do I want to heal myself as I heal other people? And you said the word empowerment before, which is really important. And if you think about the civil rights movement, after the passage of the Civil Rights Act, and the inspiring stories, not just of Martin Luther King, but also Nelson Mandela and Gandhi and many other peaceful transitions towards civil rights, the well-being of their population went up. Not because all of a sudden the US stopped discriminating against minorities, but because people felt empowered. And the more you take control over your destiny, the healthier you become. It's not just about helping your community, which is fantastic. This is what Martin Luther King did, and Mandela, and Gandhi, and Rosa Parks. But you are also helping yourself because you have a sense of control and mastery over your destiny. And few things can be as empowering as feeling in control of your destiny.
So I think, as I listen to you, that we need, first of all, more role models. We need to see more of this rather than a lot of other stuff, that we do see, on social media. Someone was telling me, after they see what's going on in the Mideast, somebody who's worked in the arts for many years, well-known in the community, she's been crying for days, because of what's happening. And there's all these terrible things happening, but we have to try to if we can do something, that's really good. But I feel in a sense, we need to take our time, use our time in a much better way, a more worthwhile way, that we feel, like you say, valued, and that we feel, or we're giving value to others. So I'm thinking, we do you feel personally that you, with the work that you're doing, that it is possible for us to really, people that understand all of this, to help create change in the world? Positive change, and change that really matters, matters, right?
Yes. So I think it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's an imperative. So people with privilege have an obligation to work towards positive change. So believe me, I've been crying too in the last few weeks.
It's heavy stuff. Yeah.
Yes. I think it's important to support others and to be supported in order to create a better vision for the future, because we don't have a choice, right? Because the alternative is to say, I give up and there is nothing I can do. This is not what Martin Luther King said. And this is not what Mandela said, right? And this is not what a lot of feminist leaders said, in light of so much adversity. So they kept going. And what I want to say is that if you surround yourself with people with whom you can cry and you can work together, that's the winning combination. We cannot ignore our own feelings. We cannot pretend that this isn't touching us. Yes, there is a time for crying and there is a time for building. And it's not one or the other. We have to do both. And I think the key is to surround yourself with peace-loving people who can see a way out. This is what the great leaders of the last century did, right? People were afraid that when Mandela was released from prison and after apartheid, there would be this great wave of violence against white people, and that never happened, right? Because Mandela had a vision and Martin Luther King had a vision, and they were able to achieve great social change. Of course, the work is not done and a lot needs to be improved, needless to say, but we cannot ignore and honor the work that has come before us.
And I think it's really important what you said. We need to surround ourselves with people that have a vision like this at some level, because to be around people like that, you have hope and you feel strong. When you're around people that are just complaining every second about how terrible the world is and how they've been wronged and this happened and there's nothing to do but, sit around and play cards or something like that. I don't know how to play cards, so that's not one of my problems. But I think if we're around people with this vision and with this feeling of we got to all help, and I think it makes a big difference. And I think we can all, as a society, community, move forward. And you are, to me, one of the leaders, with the work that you're doing. And I did want to mention, I could talk with you all day. I did want to mention that you also believe in the power of humor, right? To help us along in our, with our problems in life. So maybe tell us about, is that your newest book? And the other book the last book on mattering was, I wanted to acknowledge your wife who wrote the book with you, Aura, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So my amazing wife of almost 41 years. We're about to celebrate 41 years of marriage.
Beautiful.
We have been co-authors and we have enjoyed the living together in different countries, different cities, doing a lot of things together. And what I was saying before about combining your passion with an opportunity, that's where humor came in for me. I started writing columns for Miami Today and the Miami Herald, just humor columns about what I was observing in Miami. If you want to be a humor writer in Miami, it's easy. It's like cheating. You just go outside, you take a few notes, And, the world is very funny in Miami. So
Miami, yeah, it's funny.
So my wife and I wrote a trilogy. It's called The Laughing Guides, The Laughing Guide to Wellbeing, The Laughing Guide to Change, and The Laughing Guide to a Better Life, where we combine humor with science to promote well-being. So we introduce concepts like well-being and change through funny stories. And that was a project, a labor of love. We had a lot of fun doing it. So yes, I think that was something I never applied, but I won second place in a national humor competition. My editor at the Miami Today submitted a column that I've written. And so I figured, okay, well, maybe people do enjoy my humor. And I used it in combination with science. Because sometimes, this whole well-being topic can be a little heavy.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, can we lighten it up? And that was my goal in writing the trilogy, The Laughing Guides.
Well, it seems like everything you do is connected, with this main message of well-being and mattering. You matter and you can help others matter. I mean, I see that everything that you do, it's somehow leads to something else that can be of service to the world. So you are certainly, to me, one of those change agents. And I think that's what we need, more change agents in the world, and more people that say, yes, let me change too right now, and let me change my attitude about life, to a more positive, caring, mattering world, So thank you so much. I could talk with you all day, but I know you are busy. And I hope maybe we can do something together again, with either the Brahma Kumaris or the many organizations that we're involved with, including something called the Peace Studio, which I'd like to tell you about at some point because it's related, a national nonprofit. But I think you're definitely, on the right path to be able to to be able to help create change in the world. And if not now, when, right?
Exactly. And if not me, who?
I'm so moved by everything that you're saying. And I just thank you for saying yes to being on the program. And and I think that this is, and I think the fact that you're reaching young people, especially with your books, and not your books and your programs and your classes at UM is, I think we have to reach the young people, like you said, who can be depressed, can feel hopeless the way the world is. And so thank you.
Thank you.
Great to meet you.
Thank you for the opportunity. It was a real pleasure. Thank you.
And again, it's Dr. Prilleltensky, and he has many books, podcasts, interviews. You can find him definitely on the web, and everything about mattering and well-being. And if you can't find him on the web, well, I think that's the easiest way. He's there. So thank you.
Thank you.